I'm dealing with, please note that following the address. The announcements are in the bulletin, of which I forgot to bring one up, so I apologize for that. There are no special announcements other than what is in your bulletin at the back. It's time to start thinking about school kits again. We need blunt edge scissors, pencil sharpeners, 24-pack crayons, and 70 sheet notebooks. We're also in need of people to sign up to mow the lawn. Please sign up with the narthex. There's a paper. Reminder, there is no Revelation study this week, or this Wednesday, August 16th. Class will resume August 23rd. All are welcome to join us. This morning, as we do every morning, every Sunday, we celebrate Holy Communion. You are invited to come forward and receive the wafer from our pastor or communion assistant. As you hear the words, the body of Christ given for you. And dip it in the chalice of wine, as you hear the words, the blood of Christ shed for you. Return to your seat. Everyone is welcome at the Lord's table. No one is turned away. Wherever you are on your faith journey, you are always welcome in this place. Let us pause for a moment of silent reflection to prepare our hearts for worship before we begin with the gathering song.
Blessed be the Holy Trinity, one God, full of compassion and mercy, abounding in steadfast love. Amen. Trusting God's promise of forgiveness, let us confess our sin against God and one another. Eternal God, our Creator, in you we live and move and have our being. Look upon us, your children, the work of your hands. Forgive us all our offenses, and cleanse us from proud thoughts and empty desires. By your grace, draw us near to you, our refuge and our strength. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Since we are justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit given to us. In the mercy of Almighty God, Christ died for us while we still were sinners, and for his sake, God forgives us all our sins. Amen. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with you all. And also with you. To share a sign of God's love. and preserve us in the faith of your Son, Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord. Amen. May we see the first reading.
The first reading comes from 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 9 through 18. At Horeb, the mount of God, Elijah came to a cave and spent the night there. Then the word of the Lord came to him, saying, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He answered, "I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts. For the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away." He said, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Now there was a great wind, so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind, and after the wind an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire a sound of sheer silence. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. Then there came a voice to him that said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He answered, "I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts. For the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away." Then the Lord said to him, "Go return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. When you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael as king over Aram. Also you shall anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, as king over Israel. And you shall anoint Elisha, son of Shahab, of Abel-Maholah, as prophet in your place. Whoever escapes from the word of Hazael, Jehu shall kill, and whoever escapes from the word of Jehu, Elisha shall kill. Yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not cursed him." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Psalm 85, verses 8 through 13. I will listen to what the Lord God is saying, for you speak peace to your faithful people and to those who turn their hearts to you. Steadfast love and faithfulness have met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed each other.
Faithfulness shall spring up from the earth, and righteousness shall look down from heaven.
The Lord will indeed grant prosperity, and our land will yield its increase.
Righteousness shall go before the Lord, and shall appear of God advocate.
The second reading comes from Romans chapter 10, verses 5 through 15. Moses writes concerning the righteousness that comes from the law, that the person who does these things will live by them. But the righteousness that comes from faith says, "Do not say in your heart, who will ascend into heaven?" That is to bring Christ down. Or who will descend into the abyss? That is to bring Christ up from the dead. But what does it say? The word is near you, on your lips and in your heart. That is the word of faith that we proclaim. Because if you confess with your lips that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For one believes at the heart and so is justified, and one confesses with the mouth and so is saved. The scripture says, "No one who believes in him will be put to shame." For there is no distinction between Jew and Greek. The same Lord is Lord of all and is generous for all who call on him. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. But how are they to call on one in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in one of whom they have not heard? And how are they to hear without someone to proclaim him? And how are they to proclaim him unless they are sent? As it is written, "How beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Hallelujah.
made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side of the Sea of Galilee while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But by this time, the boat, battered by the waves, was far from land, for the wind was against them. And early in the morning he came walking toward them on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, saying, "It is a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid." Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come out to you on the water." And he said, "Come." Peter got out of the boat, started walking on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he noticed the strong wind, he became frightened and began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" When they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Please be seated. Grace, mercy, and peace be with you, the God whom we know as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. A friend of mine made an observation about Minnesotans. He said, you know, somewhere in the conversation that you have with somebody, they'll bring up the weather. Nice day, isn't it? Had a good rain last night, and boy, did we need it. He said, Minnesotans do that. Weather is a natural part of their conversation. You see, go anywhere else in the country, and it may come up on occasion, but rarely ever. Weather, it's something that we get hooked on. I think we celebrate when it's warm out, and we look forward to summer when it's winter. We have all of these looking ahead at the weather signs in us and around us. Garrison Keillor used to have weather in a lot of his monologues. One that I remember that has been a favorite of mine is when he talked about the blizzard of '65. He said he got in the car on the way home from work, and this blizzard picked up, and the wind was blowing, and it was snowing so bad that he couldn't see out the windshield. So what he did is he opened up his door and looked down, and he saw a track there, and he followed that track to keep on the road. Only he soon discovered that the track that he was following was created by his front tire. And if you have been to the Weather Channel and seen, they have a show, I think it's the Storms of the Century. Minnesota was in one of those, and it goes back to the blizzard in 1940. A day that began with farmers still out in the field. It was a wonderful, wonderful day. You had duck hunters preparing to leave their blinds because it was pretty warm out and it was time to head home. And it was just a wonderful fall day when in the afternoon the temperature dropped rapidly. And suddenly it began to snow and blow. There was 17 inches of snow on that afternoon in Minneapolis, 27 inches in St. Cloud. By the time that blizzard was over, 49 people in Minnesota had died because of it. 59 others died on Lake Superior as a result of that storm as well. It was a storm for the century, indeed. But the storms that I think that I look at and see happen and are referred to in our prayer of the day that cause the tumult in our lives are not something that we have to worry about looking for a front or letting Doppler tell us what's going on. They are the kind of storms that occur sudden, like those storms did have in the past, but they happen in our lives. They are storms such as going for a routine exam at the doctor's, only to have your day turned around totally as a result of what the doctor tells you. There are many of those storms that happen in our life. They happen suddenly. They come out of nowhere, and we have a hard time knowing what to do and where to do. You see, it's not the matter if a storm comes in our life. It has everything to do with when a storm will come in our life, and they do come. And it has little to do with who we are, how good we have cared for ourselves, and how generous we have been with our life. It happens to any and everyone. It's the storms that cause us the grief. It's the storms that cause us the pain and the sorrow. And know they are there, and we know it's when they will arrive, not if ever. We look at our friends, the disciples, given an instruction by Jesus to go out of the boat and head down the shore. I'm going to dismiss the crowd, and after I dismiss the crowd, I'm going to go up the mountainside. I haven't had a chance to mourn the loss of my cousin John the Baptist, for the crowds came. And I was concerned about them coming with those that were ill and sick, that I needed to take care of them. And of course, we remember a part of that was the feeding of the 5,000. But now he dismisses the crowds and they go home. And he went to pray. And the disciples find themselves out on the lake, going to the other side where they were to meet Jesus along the way. But the wind came up. And on that lake, that wind is a dangerous, dangerous thing. That lake becomes extremely treacherous. These are wise fishermen. They know what the lake is like. But out of nowhere, a storm can come. And they find themselves not being able to get to shore, but being in the midst of that lake, fearing for their very lives. And they continue to roll, but get nowhere, for the wind is against them. Isn't that so much like so many different things that happen in our lives as well? It's not because we are rash, it's not because we're lazy, it's not because we're careless, but there are times in our lives where the wind is against us, and we just can't seem to get to where we want to go. It's those nowhere, coming out of nowhere kinds of storms in our lives. Well, they are close to exhaustion when they look up and they see Jesus walking on the water. But they are so full of fear at this time that this only is a compounded fear. They cannot believe that that is Jesus, and that they are instead seeing a ghost. And they call it out in fear. And Jesus calls back to them, "Do not be afraid. It is I." And he proceeds to walk towards them. But Peter, it always seems to be Peter, pushes the envelope. He said, "Lord, if it really is you, invite me onto the water to come to you." Peter, come. Peter rose up, climbed out of the boat, and began walking towards Jesus. Much to his amazement, he was walking on the water. But much to his fear, he realized also that he is walking in the midst of this strong wind blowing, and now suddenly it is not a faith walk, it is a frightened moment. And he begins to sink into the lake, calling out to Jesus, "Save me." And Jesus reaches out and pulls him back onto the water, calling him the man of little faith. And they go back to the boat, and it is calm, and it is calm. You know, I like that story, and one of the reasons I like that story is that it captures some of my fear about water. I have a strange respect for the water that comes from merely drowning when I was a child. And so when I read this story, I recognize good news, because I was saved much the same way. No, not someone walking on water, but someone reaching out and grabbing onto me as I was going down. And so it has a favorite place, a reminder for me of something that happened in my life. But when you look at that story, there's something not fair about it. There's something not fair about that story, and like so many of the other stories that are about Jesus. They always have a happy ending. They always have a happy ending. The deaf person hears. The blind person sees. The lame person walks. They always come out on the good side of everything. And I look at the things that happen in and around us in our lives, and I'm going, wait a minute, that's not fair. Because there is suffering that happens to people that had no reason for it to happen to them. It just did. There are others who, there is sorrow in their lives day after day. There is pain, there is loss. And it didn't come out happy. I think sometimes when we look at these stories, we sometimes feel that we need to work harder on our faith, and maybe then they won't happen to us. Those problems won't be ours. We listen to those televangelists that tell us if we have enough faith, we will be wealthy people, or we will have the things that we need. And when that doesn't happen in our lives, then we're told, well, you don't have enough faith. You must not have enough faith. But that's not Jesus. Jesus doesn't come along with some sort of a heavenly tow truck to pull us out of a ditch along the way, and as we climb into the cab of that truck, offers us some nice chicken noodle soup to warm us up for the journey ahead. That's not Jesus. The Jesus that we have is the same one who went to those disciples, the same one who looked at Peter and helped him out in the midst of a weak moment of faith. It is the Jesus who came to them in a time of peril. It is a Jesus who comes to us, not to pull us out of that trouble, but to be with us in the midst of those things that are causing us the pain and the suffering, and to not let us go. It is the Jesus who called out to Peter to have faith, to be not one of little faith, but to have faith. And he asks us to step out in faith so that we might be able to continue working and living in the midst of those difficult times. Not that that will make it any better, but it allows us to be freed up. And it allows us to live our life as well as we can at that particular time. It is within Jesus also one who lets us know that the storms do subside. For as he was with them in the boat, the wind subsided. Storms do come and storms do stop and cease. And when they do, it's a time for healing, a very important time. Back in 1998, that beautiful little town of St. Peter, where Gustavus Adolphus College is, was hit by a tornado. It lasted only 2 minutes, but Main Street and a high number of their tall, stately trees were torn asunder. Homes were ripped up. The campus was torn apart. The steeple of the chapel was ripped. But today, as you drive through that town, they have healed. Oh, we still have trees that need another 25, 30 years of growth to return to that same look that they had in 98 and before. But the college is now as beautiful as it was. The town is now recovered. There are no ruins in that town. Storms will come, and we know they will come. But we also know that they will be over. But there's something else that we need to also think about as we look at this lesson, giving us some insight into where do we go when they happen. For the disciples were rowing, even though it was against the wind, no matter which way they wanted to go, they were going to try and find a safe harbor. Sailors know, in order to get away from that storm, you have to find that one particular side of the island, or that one particular safe harbor, and to set down and wait for the storm to be over. Where we find our safe harbor is in the midst of a community of saints, a community of believers, where we don't have to describe the storm that is in our lives or in our presence. All we need to be is there, knowing that with people in that place, in this place, we have at least a short period of time where we are assured that God is with us now and will be always. That person who came to be with us in the midst of our tough time is here now and forever. And to know that when we are in this place, when we have storms raging about and within us, we know here is where we find an understanding of the peace of God that also passes all understanding. Amen. Let's sing our hymn.
God, our Creator, you quiet the seas and silence the wind. Restore your creation to the perfection and beauty you spoke into being. Lord, in your mercy. O God, our Redeemer, inspire leaders with the righteousness that comes from faith, so that your justice thrives throughout the world. Lord, in your mercy. O God, our Sustainer, comfort those who are lonely, fearful, or burdened by doubt. Give meaningful work to those who seek employment. Walk with those who are grieving or ill, and with all who face the last days of their lives, especially Arlene Pellant and Larry Pellant. Lord, in your mercy. O God, our encourager, empower this assembly to boldly proclaim and live out your love to all who long to hear a word of hope and kindness. Equip us to use our hands, feet, voices, and minds to share the bounty you have given us. Lord, in your mercy. O God, our Savior, we rejoice in the example of the saints who have gone before us until we join them around your throne. Lord, in your mercy. Into your hands we place all our prayers, spoken and unspoken, trusting in the mercy of Christ Jesus.
Be seated for the offering. We praise your name and join their unending hymn. our Lord Jesus took bread, he gave thanks, and he broke it and gave it to them, saying, "Take and eat, this is my body, given for you. Do this for the remembrance of me." Again, after supper, he took the cup. He gave thanks, and he gave it to them, saying, "Drink of it, all of you. This cup is the new covenant in my blood, given and shed for you and for all people, for the forgiveness of sin. Do this for the remembrance of me." Let us pray the prayer given to us to pray, saying, "Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Please be seated. You are invited to the table of our Lord, for it is our Lord who has prepared it for you. Let us continue singing of our hymn, "What Feast of Love."
Thank you.
Please stand. Body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ, strengthen you and keep you in his grace. Let us pray. Jesus Christ, host us this meal. You have given us power in this bread and cup, but your very Son, that we may feast on your great love. Fill again by these signs of your grace. May we hunger for your way of justice. May we thirst for your way of peace. For you are Lord forevermore. Amen. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord's face shine on you with grace and mercy. The Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace. Amen. Our sending song.